Welcome to Alpha Found Part 3. Despite appearances, these videos are not about the history of investing, but in order to understand the current state of capital market theory, some history is required as background. A large part of that history is about the contributions of Harry Markowitz. The question of how to accomplish diversification was not yet solved in the early 1950s. As inspiration for solving the problem of diversification, Markowitz famously observed, "I was struck by the notion that you should be interested in risk as well as return." In 1952, Harry Markowitz, a 25-year-old economics PhD student at the University of Chicago, published a 14-page paper in the Journal of Finance with the modest title, Portfolio Selection. Here is the first page. In 1959, Markowitz published a book by the same title as a gentle introduction to his theory. A full and not-so-gentle explanation of his theory was published in 1987 under the title Mean Variance Analysis in Portfolio Choice in Capital Markets. The problem of diversification had been solved. Eventually, that short paper of 1952 would earn Markowitz the Nobel Prize in Economics. Return is easy to understand. It's the percent change in the value of your investments over time. Risk is tougher to define, but Markowitz decided that variance of return is the proper measure of risk. Most investors don't think variance of return when they think of risk, but nonetheless, it's a good definition in that it is mathematically precise and often easy to work with. There are several assumptions underlying Markowitz. 1. Investors are concerned with only two parameters, risk and return. 2. Investors are risk averse. 3. Investors seek the highest level of return for a given level of risk. 4. All investors have the same expectations concerning return, variance, and covariance for all risky assets. This is usually called homogeneous expectations. 5. All investors have the same one-period time horizon. And 6. Stock returns follow a joint normal distribution. Markowitz has since said that joint normal is not needed. Any of over 100 distributions will work, but joint normal is often used since it is the easiest distribution to work with. The assumptions for Markowitz can be found in many places. The first 5 assumptions in this case came from Finance, Capital Markets, Financial Management, and Investment Management by Frank Fabozzi and Pamela Peterson Drake. Unfortunately, I have the book in PDF, so I can't show you where it is on my bookshelf. So Markowitz solved the problem of diversification, and as such, the problem of how to create an investment portfolio. Sort of. We'll get to why he only sort of solved the problem in a couple of minutes. His method is often referred to as mean variance optimization or EV optimization, where the E is the mathematical expectation operator. Expectation just means mean, and V is variance. Mean variance optimization as applied to investments is a specific application of quadratic optimization, which used to be called quadratic programming. When applied to investing, mean variance optimization is called modern portfolio theory or MPT. By the way, I will use variance and standard deviation interchangeably when it comes to discussions of risk, but not interchangeably when we finally get to calculations in later videos. But what does it mean? Essentially, the idea is that with all the potential investments or combinations of investments that someone might choose, an investor would want to minimize risk for any expected return or maximize expected return for any given level of risk. A formula will not accomplish the desired calculation. Instead, an algorithmic procedure is used. There are an infinite number of possible portfolios someone might construct, but the best portfolio for any given level of expected return will have the lowest possible expected standard deviation of returns. In this case, what that means is that although you will not likely get the expected return exactly, but some level of return above or below that amount, the standard deviation of the possible returns will be at a minimum when compared to the standard deviation of other portfolios with the same expected return. Alternatively, the best portfolio is the one that gives the maximum expected return for the amount of risk. The result of Markowitz mean variance analysis is what you see on the screen. The red curve is called the efficient frontier. The M represents the market portfolio, which is assumed to be one of the efficient portfolios. Any point on the curve represents an efficient portfolio, and any point below the curve represents an inefficient portfolio, meaning either lower risk is available for the same expected return or higher expected return is available for the amount of risk. The vertical axis is the expected return of the portfolio. About a quarter of the way up is R sub F, which is the risk-free rate of return, usually U.S. government bills or bonds. The horizontal axis uses standard deviation for a risk measure. The line drawn from the risk-free rate through M is called the capital market line. The implication is that it's best to own some combination of the market portfolio and the risk-free asset. To achieve a risk-return combination different from the market by buying a different efficient portfolio on the curve will be less efficient than buying the market portfolio with a portion of your assets and placing the rest of your assets in the risk-free asset. The portion of the line extending beyond the market portfolio, up and to the right, represents borrowing in order to put more than 100% of your assets in the market. Put another way, the implication is that whatever percentage you put in the stock market, that percentage should be put in the market portfolio, and the remaining percentage should be put in the risk-free asset. The specifics of the algorithm that constructs the efficient frontier is not important for these videos. However, the inputs alone are challenging enough. If someone wanted to construct a mean variance optimization for the stocks that make up the S&P 500, the following inputs are needed. Estimated mean returns for each of 500 stocks, estimated variance for each stock, and estimated covariance between each pair of 500 stocks. All told, that is 125,250 covariances plus 500 estimated mean returns, or 125,750 estimates of future price behavior in total. If you wanted to use historical data to make the estimates and 5 years of monthly data is used, you have 30,000 data points to make 125,750 statistical estimates. Therefore, there is a massive problem of insufficient degrees of freedom. As a result, there is no good way to make the needed individual estimates from historical data. Apart from the impossibility of making such estimates in the first place, even if it could be done, no computers available in 1952 could then handle the computations that would follow. The great insights of Harry Markowitz would have to wait for further insights to be practical. As an aside, today these calculations are easily done at the level of asset classes or economic sectors. If the asset classes are few, there is no degrees of freedom problem when historical statistical relationships are used to estimate future statistical relationships, if the relationships are stable. Much more could be said about the application of mean variance efficiency to investment theory in practice, but we need to push forward to the capital asset pricing model in William F. Sharpe.